Hi, my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of WEYT. Flip Awesome Aguilera here, and today's mantra is: one might believe what you say, but they will always believe what they see you do. So be mindful of what you are actually doing out there in the world. And if you can see here, I have a very accomplished face sitting here after getting her brand new real estate license. And this is Morgyn Denman. And how I met Morgyn is moving here to Colorado Springs. You know, I need to try to find people and network. So I've been going to network meetings, and she's one of the people that stood out because she's got a cool idea and a cool mission that she's got. So I thought, why not have her on to share what she's got to say with all of you. So Morgyn, please tell us more about what makes you Morgyn Denman.
Well, that's a loaded question, but I appreciate you having me on and giving me the chance to talk.
Yeah.
So my name is Morgyn Denman. I am the homesteading realtor. Just got my license last Saturday, so very, very excited, very new. I have been homesteading for the last 4 years now, and I've had rabbits, chickens, and ducks, and lots of dogs. What makes me me? I love mindset. I love learning about the brain and why people do things, but not just like, why do you do this? But like, try to really get into their personality, their mind, and, help them hack the, I don't want to say bad qualities, but the less than wanted qualities in their life.
Awesome. So when you say homesteading, for those of us that have come from a city and, it's a brand new concept, explain a little bit more about what homesteading is.
I think that's my favorite question that people ask me is, what is homesteading? And the first thing that always comes to my mind is it's a lifestyle. And so a lot of people who do sort of know about homesteading, they think it's like living out in the country with a farm and all of this stuff, but if you want to be self-sustainable and self-sufficient, it's as little as growing a tomato on your windowsill. It's literally just wanting to do something for yourself, to be able to produce produce a little bit more in your life. I remember when I was in my apartment with my husband, I had this clear tote. It was probably like this big, and I had a tomato in it. And I got this pack of tomato seeds for free, and I planted it, and I saw it sprout, and it was growing, and it had like these weird bumps all over it. My husband said that the tomato had cancer because the seeds were from India.
Oh.
I was like, "You're ridiculous," but the pride that I felt when I had one little tiny squishy tomato that came off of that plant. I ate it. It was not good, but I was proud of it. And so homesteading is, I mean, it's just being able to be self-sufficient in the way that you can. One of my online mentors, Justin Rhodes, he says, plant where you are, or just plant. He was living in a converted school bus that he named Mabel, and him and his wife and his family, I think they had 4 kids at the time, were driving in this bus across the country to find where their new home was going to be, because they didn't know if they wanted to stay where their homestead was. And they were so proud because they weren't able to have the big garden that they have every year, and they had cows and pigs and all this stuff, but on the bus they couldn't have any of that. And so they had a little pot of basil in the front of their bus, and they would like bring it out everywhere and take videos by it everywhere they went. And that's homesteading, is just being proud of what you can make with your hands.
How long have you been into planting things and all that type of stuff that goes into your homesteading?
Probably about 4 years. I have, so when I was in the apartment, I grew that tomato, and I didn't know anything about homesteading or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to try. That was my first kind of introduction in growing anything. I told my husband that when we get a house, I want to get a rabbit, and so he promised me that. And we got a rabbit, and like within the first 2 months of us living in the house, I was like, I'm gonna get one. So I went out and I found Gideon, and Gideon was a boy. And then I was like, Gideon's really lonely when I'm working. And so I got Gideon, his friend Finn. And Gideon ended up being a female.
Oh.
So then we had a litter of 9 babies. Absolutely fell in love with having the little tiny baby bunnies and raising them and having this little rabbit family. And so I sold those as pets, and I made like $200 or $300 that first time having that litter. And I was like, first of all, I love it, and I could make some extra money, so I have to do it. So I started just researching, just like researching everything I could find out about rabbits first off, and then I found this term called permaculture.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? That's crazy.
Why aren't
So,
we living like that all the time?
yeah. So, regenerative, I think that's how to say the word.
Regenerative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To basically, I believe in God, and I believe that God created this earth a certain way. And so it just makes sense for us to, have chickens where we want to have our garden. And then we pull the chickens and we put them in a new spot. And now they're prepping a second garden, and we're growing food, and we're feeding ourselves, and then we're feeding the chickens, and then we put the chickens back. And it's just
Yeah.
like this cyclical
Yeah.
thing where the earth is just able to replenish itself and rest and feed us. And it's so holy to me.
Yeah.
To be able to witness that beautiful cycle. And
Here's what I found.
yeah, Google is telling
She's
me
telling you about permaculture.
So I've been doing this for about 3 years, and it's everybody always says that chickens is the gateway drug of homesteading. Rabbits was mine. Okay. I just fell in love with rabbits. I probably have about 20 rabbits right now, and I just absolutely love it. And then I got chickens. We ended up with like 35 chickens at some point. I don't know if you've heard about chicken math, but it's a real thing.
I've never heard of chicken math. Tell me more about chicken math.
Chicken math is when you just decide, I just want 3 chickens. Three chickens, and that's all we're gonna have. But look at this breed of chickens. They have fuzzy heads. We just need one. It was such a good deal. We got 2 chickens, and so somehow they just multiply and multiply, and you don't they don't multiply like rabbits. They multiply by you just end up bringing more and more into the house.
You mentioned earlier that you just passed your realtor test, and when I met you, you were getting ready for it because you said you wanted to be, as you said earlier, known as the Homestead Realtor. So yes. What does that vision mean for you? And what is it that you want to try to help people do as the Homestead Realtor?
This dream is this vision and dream is kind of like slowly accumulating and snowballing. One thing I'm learning about myself is that I'm not like a planner. I kind of just I go into a direction, and I just kind of like fall into what I'm supposed to be doing. With this real estate, it started off as like, okay, I hate being an employee. So I decided, what can I do? I was already in leasing, and I really loved the idea of finding people that perfect space for themselves. I did not understand how I could fit homesteading with the real estate or anything, but I needed to do something different. I was like, God, I'm giving it to you, but I'm going to go for real estate. And so I went for my schooling. I started school February 22nd. And then COVID hit the next month. And it took me an extra 6 months to get my license. But in the last 2 months, I decided that I love the thought that I've been studying homesteading. I've been doing homesteading for the last 4 years. I absolutely love it. And I've learned so much about agriculture and regenerative growing practices and animals and all this stuff. I've never had goats, but I mean, I could give you a whole podcast on how to take care of goats, because I've watched so much, and I know so many people who talk about this kind of stuff. My dream with this real estate is, first off, we only have so much land. There's not going to be an influx of land unless like the ocean just disappears, and that would be just terrible. And so these people who, with love in their hearts and homesteads or farms or whatever they have in their minds, they go out for 35, 40, 50, 60 acres because they just want the most amount of land for the least amount of money, which sounds wise, it sounds smart. However, if you buy 35 acres and you're only capable of cultivating and using 2 acres of that, now you have 33 acres that is just accumulating with the dead trees and is just sitting there, and it's kind of not responsible or not fair to a lot of people who want to have that rural country lifestyle and that self-sustainable lifestyle, because all the land is bought up. And so what I want to do is help people conceptualize and figure out what their vision is. Maybe you want goats now, but you have to know that goats are escape artists. you have to know how much fencing is going to cost. You have to have like an understanding of these things, or someone who does have an understanding of these things to help you figure out, first of all, what your dream is, and then second of all, what effort are you willing to actually put into this? And are you going to be able to fund it? Because homesteading may be simpler, but it is not cheaper. I did learn that it's not cheaper. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And so I kind of want to be that first off accountability buddy to not let you go crazy, and then also kind of help you dream in a realistic and productive way. Yeah, I want to help people figure out what their dream homestead is, and then help them find the perfect land for them. And that includes like finding, do you want a well? Do you want septic? Do you want a natural water source? How much land are you going to be able to use? Do you want trees on the land? Do you want agriculture? Do you want commercial use? Do you want just residential? There's a lot of different things that go into finding land, and people, like I said, they just want the most amount of land for the least amount of money. And so I kind of want to help people change their mindset on finding their homestead.
Well, I hope you the best of luck as you begin your journey into becoming the homestead realtor. But now we're going to transition to the next part of the show. So, Jordan Denman, could you please share with us what's been engaging your thoughts lately?
I am building a business right now. I've never been a business owner before. I guess right now I'm just trying to flip my mindset, no pun intended. I don't have to study anymore on real estate and all these things for the test, but now it's like, all right, now I have to figure out how to put the puzzles together in order to run a successful business. And that's marketing, that's advertising, that's building a database of people who like, love, and trust me. That's where my brain has been at.
So, have you had any thoughts as to how you are going to get out there and find the people that would like for you to help them make their vision a reality?
COVID, or the wrench,
The wrench.
the wrench in everybody's gears, has really kind of thrown a wrench in everything. And so the normal door-to-door knocking and prospecting and all that and going up and shaking people's hands is kind of out of the question at this point. Social media and having a following, even if it's not in this state, is kind of very, very, very important in this economic situation right now. What I am trying to do is network and be on podcasts like these, and trying to just get my brand out there. Also trying not to sound like I'm just trying to brand myself and market myself to you. The concept of trying to connect on at such a distance. trying to connect and have that, eye to eye. Let's sit down, let's have coffee over Zoom. It's definitely something I've never had to do. I've always hated applying for places and just handing in my resume because I don't look good on paper. I'll be honest. I look really bad on paper. But if I sit down and I meet the manager, I feel a lot better because I have a personality that can, cut through my resume. It's been very interesting in that sense. I worked as a property manager at a apartment complex. So I did have a lot of relationships that went really really well, and when I left, they were really upset, and a lot of people were moving out, and they were not happy that I left. And so going back there and talking to them and building that relationship again is one way that I'm kind of getting my name out there. Social media is key, but trying to be real and being able to connect and understanding what people are really looking for, and not throwing out a super large net, but staying within my niche, which is the homesteading.
Earlier, you brought up mindset and the brain and why people do the things that they do. So, what's taken you down that path of wanting to learn all of that?
Being wildly depressed.
Okay, tell us more, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of that energy bubbling up in their head. Now, when you say depression, I would like to share with you my thought on depression, and you tell me, since you obviously lived it. So when I hear depression, I think the brain of the person depressed is caught up in a pattern of thinking of things in the past that they can't control anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they get caught up in that cycle of, something happened before, I can't control it, and now I'm depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that sound to you?
It's very, very accurate. It's very astute. However, you use the word caught up. And I can tell you from experience that that's what it is. You are caught. You are caught in a web. And it's difficult because you as someone who understands that are looking at someone from the outside and saying, look, this is what you need. This is what you're going through. And the person that's in it is like, you don't understand what I'm going through.
Yeah.
You have no idea what I'm going through right now. When in reality, people understand. You're never alone. If you're feeling something, you're a human being. Somebody else is feeling it. Ryan Serhant is one of my mentors. I've been studying his book, Sell It Like Serhant, and he talks about how there was a point in his life where he calls the wall. And the wall is what he thinks about and what he puts his back up against whenever he thinks, oh, well, I'm just going to take it easy with this day. Or, whenever he feels like he's failing, he thinks about that wall, and that wall springboards him into action because he never wants to get to that. And that was him at a grocery store. He was trying to just get some tofu or something, and he ran his credit card and he was declined. And it was the most embarrassing thing that he had ever gone through. And then so he made up a lie and he ran out of the store crying on the subway. And so that was his wall. He never wants to be in that position. My wall, and it's taken me quite a few months and a lot of introspection to figure out what my wall is. And when I was I think it was about 19, I just moved with my dad after not having a relationship with him for 12 years. All of my friends decided that I was scum and I was just not worth it. I had no friends. I had lost my fiance. We were not together anymore. My mom and I, we were at a crossroads and we just had no relationship. I just didn't want anything to do with her. And I never thought about suicide, but I wanted to die, but suicide was never never an option. But I was stuck in my room and I couldn't get out of bed without crying. What I remember when I think about giving up, when I would get up out of bed and I would enter the kitchen in those very rare moments where I was not just bawling my eyes out and just ridiculously sad, I would get up, I would go into the kitchen. My dad would ask me, hey, how are you? Are you okay? And I would just start crying and I'd have to run back into the room. Like I wasn't eating. I was so wildly depressed. I thought I wasn't worth anything. I thought that, my life was over, and I was 19, you know. I had terrible nutrition. I had no friends. You know, my life was spiraling, but it was like I wasn't even trying. And so I worked myself out of that funk. My dad was like, you need to either get a job or go to school. You need to do something. You can't just sit around here. So I ended up going to college or signing up for community college. Then my dad offered me the opportunity. He gave me his car, his computer, all the money in his bank account, and he said, "Go to Colorado, go for God." And so I came out here to go to Bible college, and that was the beginning of my independent life.
So when you say independent, because I did an episode, one of my first 5 episodes, it might be episode 4, with a friend of mine named Jimmy MacGyver.
Okay.
And we actually brought up that word independence when it comes to specifically relationships. Our discussion went down the road of, we think independent is probably the wrong word to put there, because independent means you don't need anything. You're independent. Right. Where if you're self-sufficient, you have what you need, but you still are open to, you know, receive other people's emotion and energy. You're not independent. You don't have that wall of, oh, I'm good by myself and I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that? Okay.
Going back to my mom and I, we were very, very codependent.
Okay.
My mom, she did not treat me like a daughter. She treated me like a best friend. And she believed whatever the wind blew her that day, which, you know, that's fine for her. But for me, it was very, very confusing. I didn't have a mother figure, but I watched my mother and my big sister fight constantly, have like a very abusive relationship. And then my little sister, I tried to protect her from a lot of the stuff my mom did. I don't know really how to explain this, but like my mom, she raised me to be a fine artist. I was a portrait artist, and then she was Matisse, that artist. She did more of like oil paintings, flowers, big statement pieces. We did a lot of that together, and so I was very dependent on her opinion and her approval. And so whenever our relationship broke, I kind of was like, okay, well, what do I live for now? My whole life has been a lie. I don't have any friends anymore. I don't understand how to do anything. And now I chose Jesus, and now I'm going in this direction, and I have no idea. Like, people are saying that they hear the voice of God and this and that. I'm just like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. What are you even saying? It took a lot of time of like faking it till I make it. I always say that when I first became a Christian and I first started reading the Bible, I was absolutely in love with what it said and Jesus and his character, and like it was just so pure. And then I went to church and I went to Bible college, and I got really, really, really confused when I came out here. And I say independent, but it was my first time away from living with my parents. My first time away from like being in a relationship or being a part of some sort of little group. So I came out here and I was very, very alone. I was renting a room from someone out here, and that was a really nice situation. But it was my first time having to really be a grown up,
be responsible.
Mm-hmm. It took me. I had to come to school late. Because my big sister was having a baby, and he's like the first love of my life, little Jaden. After Jaden was born, that was when I decided, okay, I'm ready to enroll in school. And so I was 3 months late, and then I had to go to summer school for my college. And so in summer school, I actually met my husband. So I had about a year of like being independent and being on my own. And then I met Taylor, and we moved in together as friends. That's never that never works out. You always end up either together or just hating each other at the end. So we became best friends. We were best friends for 6 months. Then we started dating. 2 months later, we were married. So Everybody was like, that's too fast. I'm like, you know what? 6 years later, we're still together. So the whole mindset thing has been coming from being outrageously depressed and finding out that my whole world was a lie. And the reason I say that is because my dad moved away from Hawaii, which was where I was born and raised. He moved to North Carolina when I was 6 years old. Then I lived with my mom. And so my mom always kind of put it in my head that, can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay. um, so my mom always said, Daddy Disneyland, Mommy Bitch. And so that was like, all right, well, Daddy wants me to believe that he is amazing and perfect, and he wants me to believe that Mommy is terrible, when in reality, it was the opposite. For 12 years, I believed that my dad did not want me. My dad chose to leave us. My dad, he didn't want us. And so as a young girl, I don't have a cell phone, I don't have the ability to just like reach out to my dad. Everything was kind of like policed by my mom. And so at 19, I was talking to my mom when I moved back to Hawaii to be with her and my little sister. And I don't remember the conversation, but I remember this part of it. And I was telling her that I don't care about my dad. For all I care, he could die because he never wanted me anyway. And I don't care. Like, he sucks, whatever. And she turns around at a stoplight and she says, it's not that he didn't want you. It's that I didn't want him to have you. That was probably the most selfish thing that I have ever witnessed in my life. And I witnessed a lot of selfish stuff. That was the moment where I was like, all right, my whole life has been a lie. I don't know what to believe. I don't know where to go. Like, I had depression and anxiety since I was like really, really young, because I was emotionally, not really physically, sometimes physically, but more it was emotional and mental abuse. It was a lot as a kid to handle all that. I had my first anxiety panic attack when I was 16, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night, going to get a drink in the kitchen, and then waking up in the morning with like a big gash on my neck because I fell down and hit the counter because I just fainted. Like, I had extreme anxiety. And so going through all that, and I always have this thing inside of me that's like, I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't want to get help. I'm just going to do it myself. And so I've always been a do-it-yourselfer. That's what kind of got me into like, all right, I can't go to church. I can't go to this Bible college anymore. I have to do this myself. I have to figure it out for myself. And so I did a lot of studying of religions. I did a lot of studying of a lot of different things, mindset and all that, manifestation, The Secret, all of it. God always put in my mind that if you seek me, or if you seek truth, you will always find me. I've always kept that in my mind, and I've always come back to Jesus, but in the Bible, not in church. I've always been afraid of looking into like secular tools like self-help books and that kind of thing. And so one day in my anxiety, I was like constantly overwhelmed, and it was like, but I wasn't doing anything because I was always procrastinating. And so I would procrastinate, and then I'd get overwhelmed by the things I'm procrastinating, and I never got anything done because I was procrastinating. And I have this Facebook homesteading group, and I just put in there, I have to say, it's almost exhausting watching you homesteading mothers of like 7 kids, looking beautiful. The house is pristine, and you guys are taking care of milking cows and goats and all of this stuff. And it's like, I have 2 dogs and some rabbits, and I am constantly overwhelmed. Help, what can I do? And so when I put that on there, I got probably 100 comments in the first hour. And I was like, all right, I can't read all these. So I was scrolling through them, and I found the name Mel Robbins. I'm just going to look it up. And so I looked up Mel Robbins, and I found the 5-second rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I just latched onto that, and I fell in love with it because it caused me to be able to like wake up and, I don't want to wait. I don't want to get up. I don't want to do anything. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You get up, you do something. Because what it does is it interrupts it activates your prefrontal cortex to action. And you have 5 seconds when you have a thought to either hesitate or to actually take action. And so if you can hack your habits, and instead of taking that hesitation and causing it to make you not do anything, because your brain is constantly trying to protect yourself. And so when you hesitate, you're sending a signal to your brain that tells you, this is dangerous. You don't want to do this. This is really dangerous. And so I'm going to make you not want to do this. When you interrupt that and you put a new thought in place of that hesitation, then it causes you to make action. And of course, it takes over and over and over and over again in order to make that new habit. And so that was how I was able to, what I think of is rock climbing. And when you have anxiety, it's almost like you're sliding down the mountain. This tool helped me get that grip. And so that's what the 5-4-3-2-1 rule did for me, is I got the grip. And then from that threw me into a spiral of, okay, let's figure out what this mindset thing, let's figure out why I do these things. And so my joy and my passion of figuring out why people do things is because I was in a place where I couldn't do anything. And then I found out I was actually limitless. And so that's my goal. What was the question?
Well, no, that was great. Thank you for sharing all of that. One thing that I wanted to circle back on, because you said when you were going through your depression that you would get up, and you realized that you were eating terrible foods, but at the same time, you did not want to eat.
I did not realize that back then, but it was like, yeah, like sugar sustained me. Coffee sustained me.
Yeah.
Sweets, grain, anything that was comfort food.
But that's also what feeds the neurosis.
Yeah, I think it's dopamine. Dopamine is the one that, okay.
Yeah, that makes you get that hit. The serotonin is
okay.
Makes you chill.
Yeah.
It makes you happier, where dopamine makes you happy, but you want it more. Yeah. You want the hit more often.
Mm-hmm. And also I was I was smoking a lot of weed back then too.
But you were doing it to numb.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a difference between doing it for numbing and to actually use it as a tool of awareness. Mm-hmm. Because that's just the tool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what's behind the intention of using that tool.
Yeah. And I always used it for recreation and like to get out of my current, I don't even know what you want to call it, but like the current state that I was in. And I love, like, I've done so much research on like changing of your states and, being in your power state. And I can't remember who was talking about this, but they call it either your primal state or your like beautiful state or something like that. And it's like, so now when I have like negative thoughts or anything that's not like beautiful, I'm just like, oh, Jordan, you're in your primal state. You have to get back in your beautiful state.
But that takes a lot of strength.
Yeah.
To not fall back into that habit. Because that's what it all is, especially when it comes to the brain. Everything is about a habit. Mm-hmm. You can create a habit that builds you, or you can create a habit that doesn't. That choice is up to the individual. Yeah. But no matter what, the habit is there to be built, and your brain wants to build habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In regards to food, I didn't realize how detrimental or how much an attribute of food can be until probably, I would say about 3 years ago. My mother-in-law, she was like into Whole30 and figuring out, like different food allergies and stuff like that. And she was like, well, Jordan, if you're not feeling good, well, maybe you should like cut out dairy or something. Just cut out something that you can, live without, and just cut it out for a week, put it back into your diet and see how it affects you. And so I did that for a week. And I put some butter inside of my eggs at the end of the week. And I was sick for 4 days straight, like severe stomach cramps. I couldn't believe it. And so I stopped dairy altogether after that. And well,
Yeah.
ice cream. You can't just stop dairy without, killing yourself here and there. I stopped dairy, and within, I want to say about 8 months, I lost 65 pounds. Saved my
And
life.
that was just with dairy.
Just dairy. No
You didn't even do the whole
exercising.
30, the whole shebang of the whole 30.
Nope. It was literally just taking dairy out. I wasn't exercising more. I wasn't eating better. I wasn't doing anything other than not eating dairy. Obviously, you have to figure out substitutes for certain recipes and stuff like that. And then also, my husband, he's from Texas, so he eats a lot of tacos and nachos and this and that. And so I guess I took a lot of the like chips and taco shells and that kind of thing out of my diet. Yeah, that changed my life, absolutely. And so I kind of dabbled in different diets and this and that, but nothing that I could ever like hold on to and want to actually move forward with. And so then I found the Whole30 diet. And the first time I did that, I failed horribly. I didn't understand about additives and all that stuff, and I didn't read any labels. The second time I did it, though, which was very recently, probably in July, I did it. It was really eye-opening because I did it completely. I was so proud of myself, but then I realized the 30 days is not what the diet is for. The 30 days is for the 15 to 30 to 45 days after, in introducing foods back into yourself to figure out how your body responds.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was I wanted to try white rice because I was really missing rice, and I grew up in Hawaii, and that was a staple. And so I had jasmine rice in the morning because it says that you want to eat that food the whole day.
All day. Yeah.
So I tried it, and then my husband took me out to sushi later, and I only had like the rice with like the fish and everything, nothing extra. Literally within an hour of after eating the sushi, well, it started actually after the first time I ate the rice. It was like an hour or two after I started like feeling joint pains and stuff. But after the sushi, it was like I got run over by a truck. It was terrible. Like my muscles were in pain. I had inflammation throughout all of my joints. Like it was crazy. And so that was the real moment that I was like, okay, food can either kill you or it can revive you. I've had a lot of like fallbacks and everything. When I went to visit my dad, him and I shared an apple pie, full size.
So, full size, not a slice.
Yeah, no, it was full size. But it really opened my eyes to like, like something that you've eaten your whole life, just because you don't realize that it's hurting you doesn't mean that it's not hurting you. And like my husband's like, oh, well, I've been eating dairy for this long and blah blah blah, and I'm like, babe, it's because you don't, like, you're so used to it.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like to feel good.
Exactly. I can't tell you how like I was when I realized that like my stomach wasn't constantly hurting after I stopped dairy. Like there's a moment when you realize that you're not in constant pain anymore, that you're just like, wait a second, this is what normal feels like.
Yeah.
It's a heavenly moment for sure. To realize, man, like I was going, like my mind, my heart, my decisions, everything was affected by how I felt.
Of course.
So,
of course.
Food is important.
Food is important. Now, the reason I brought this up earlier is because you said when you were depressed, you said you were not eating. But what you were eating was not, helping you feel better, which is why your body was telling you, stop eating, because it's not helping. And if you think about, in your case, Jesus, but you can also look at Buddha. You could look at very many of the people that we still talk about today over the centuries and millennium, and a lot of them had their moment when they went on long fasts, where they had their clarity because they didn't have any of the foods talking to their psychology, talking to their emotion, to the point that you just made. They got it all out of the way so that they can have clarity. And looking And listening to your story, it seems like your body was trying to tell you, I need clarity to get out of here so that I can move on. But thank goodness you found that clarity. And here you are sitting here, a self-sufficient woman being that is trying to make herself better and make others better in the process.
Yes.
And that's pretty cool. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Now we're going to transition to the next part of all this fun interviewing stuff. And the first question I have for you here is, if you could speak to somebody dead or alive, who would it be?
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther, the first one, the Protestant Reformation one? Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you want to speak to Martin Luther? He's an interesting guy for sure. He changed the face of a lot of things.
Yeah. I recently watched a movie called Martin Luther. It was made in like 53 or 59 or something like that. Very old movie. And there's a point in the movie, a scene in the movie where he's doing the first Eucharist, which is the bread and the wine, and he's doing his very first Eucharist as like father. And so he's there, he's standing with the cup, and he's like shaking. Like it looks like on the outside, it looks like he's very nervous. It looks like he's freaking out. And so the next scene after that is his superior or whatever coming to him and saying, a lot of people in their first Eucharist, they're very afraid, blah blah blah. He says, no, I have to be honest, that the reason that I seemed like that is not because I was nervous for what people saw me doing. Like I wasn't self-conscious. I want to love God. I want to love this church, but I can't love a God, the kind of God that is portrayed in this church. The God who just wants money and wants you to be in pain and this and that. And so I can't morally be okay with that. That was like his the whole story is just amazing because it's like him following his morals, him following his values, and like the fact that he's reading this Bible and it doesn't line up with what he's seeing in this church that he was raised in. And he went from being a lawyer to a monk because he was searching something truer than what he saw. He's just one of those people who I could just sit at his feet and just listen to what he has to say about grace and truth and all. Just, oh man, I'm reading one of his books actually right now. He's one of my biggest role models.
Aside from this book, and you can say it if you want, but what are, let's say, 3 of the top resources that have inspired you?
First one is, of course, the Bible. And I would say with that, read it for yourself. Don't read it through the lens of what the church has told you, whatever church you're in, whatever denomination. Just because it comes out of a quote unquote representative's mouth doesn't mean anything. You need to read it for yourself. You seek truth for yourself, not for anybody else.
That's basically Martin Luther's message. That was his message.
I'm so happy that you know who that is too. A lot of people, every time
the thing is that if you think about the
like,
history,
Martin Luther King, I'm like, no,
the first one,
he's a great man.
the German one, the
I
Holy Roman Empire,
completely. But no, the guy who he was named after.
Yeah. The thing is, his story it's very intense. Number one, I'm surprised he survived after he nailed those, that letter on that church, because the church was a mafia. And trying to take power away from the mafia, usually you end up sleeping with the fishes.
So I actually, the reason I took my test on the day that I did is because it was the 500th anniversary of the 95 thesis being hammered on the door, and it was Sabbath. I got my license on the Sabbath and the anniversary of him doing that. So I was just like, yeah. And it was Halloween, so whatever.
But the thing is, those 95 rules that he put up there, created the beginning of a lot of bloodshed. Right? So just that seed of him doing that created so much, let's call it, a popular term of the day is disruption. Like Tesla's disrupting the car. They disrupted the Catholic Church and it became a thing, right? You had a whole wars fought over that.
Just because tradition and the status quo has been the same for how many years doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah.
But my second book
Yeah.
is Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Yes.
That when I found out that there was a difference between when I found out that there was even two mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, whew,
yeah,
my life got turned upside down. It was crazy. I wanted to I almost became a disciple of Miss Dweck, like seriously, or Dr. Dweck.
Yeah.
I actually found out that there was a impact theory interview with Tom Bilyeu and Carol Dweck, and I was just like, Tom was like, I don't fangirl, like I don't, but I am totally fangirling right now. I was like, I totally relate. But that is something that has been like monumental for my mentality, is understanding the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and it's a spectrum. Like people think you either have either or. No, it's a spectrum. Like you could have fixed mindset in like for me, I had a fixed mindset that I could not learn. I was just bad at math. I was just not a school person. Art is limitless. Your mind can think and be creative to the nth degree. There's no limit. And so why would I have a limit or a limited or unlimitless mindset on that, but then on math and education, I'm completely limiting myself to like, I'm not good enough. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so that just revolutionized my life. Third book, I mean, some of the books that I've read that really, really were kind of monumental, I guess, Take Control of Your Life by Mel Robbins. This book I'm reading now, which is not written by Martin Luther. It's been written by Joshua Nichols. It's called Walk Between Heaven and Earth. And it's, I haven't finished it yet, but it's really very, very interesting. It's talking about how we don't live in heaven yet. But as Christians, as followers of Christ, we are not to just live on this earth as earthly beings. So we have to have a gospel mind, which is love, basically, because Christ was the gospel. He was love. Everything was out of, I died for you so you can live the life that I deserve, and I would take the death that you deserve. And the earth is all about law, conditional. You like, you're not good enough because you're not doing this, you're not doing that. But God's character says that I love you because I created you. I love you. And so this is why you're worthy, is because I love you, not because of what you've done, because of I love you. And so being able to keep in your mind that God loves me, that I am loved, that I am worth it because he says so, but keeping in your hands, I'm not going to steal from you. I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to try to hurt you at all because I love you, if that makes sense. So the law comes naturally out of love. So that's what that book is about. It's very, very profound, very interesting. And so those are, I guess, the 4 books that are really awesome to me right now.
All right. So next question is the time traveling question. And this one it takes people aback sometimes. So here we go. If you could go back in time and speak to your 18-year-old mother, what advice would you give her?
I would say, I'm so sorry for the hurt that you've been put through. Because you were dropped off as a baby, adopted, doesn't mean that you're less than. Doesn't mean that you have to search for love anywhere other than yourself or God. You are who you are. You were put on this planet for a reason. And you don't need to look elsewhere for anything. Just look at, I don't want to say look to yourself because that can be misleading sometimes. But be sure that you don't need to do anything for anybody else. So I don't. Did you ask for a question? I
No,
don't really
that's
have a
fine. It's just the
question for
bit, the
her.
just advice you would give to
Um,
her. And basically, what you're telling, what I am understanding, is you're trying to tell her that she's enough. So the next question is, take a deep breath. All right. So the next question is an easy one. Is that, are there any questions you would like to ask me?
is your real name Flip?
That is my real name.
Awesome.
I
Very
was
cool.
not born with that name, but it
Okay.
is my real name on my license, and my middle name is Awesome on my license. So
That's
I
awesome.
did have my name changed,
Okay.
and part of that came from, people have been calling me Flip since forever, since as long as I can remember. I was part of a club that I'm actually going to start here in Colorado Springs called Accent Club in Miami. And the guy who was in charge of that club, his name was Ivan Dynamo de Jesus. And he gave himself that name Dynamo. And I was like, well, if he can be Dynamo, I can be awesome. So, so I thank him
That's
for,
cool.
for actually taking the initiative to do it in his life. I was like, if he could do it, I could do it. So why not? And another reason
Yeah.
I did it,
You
well,
can
there's two
be
more.
whoever you want to be.
Yeah, there's two other stories that I kind of have behind that. And the first one is, it has to do with Scientology, even though I think out of all, there's a lot of ideologies out there, and I'm a curious person and I like to learn about all of them. And that one is pretty weird. When I think of the story of how Scientology even became a thing, L. Ron Hubbard, who was the creator, what I admire about him is that he realized that he lived in a world where he could do whatever he want, and he did it. And we're living with the ramifications of it now that he's not even here. So if he can create a religion, basically, my middle name can be Awesome. And then the last reason, or the most fundamental reason that I did it, is just to prove to my kids that you can do whatever you want.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
really cool.
that's the real reason I did it. So thank you for that question.
Oh
And
yeah.
let the people know where they can find more of the Homestead Realtor.
Okay. I'm still getting up and running with all of my like business doodads and whatnot. But if you want to know about my homesteading journey, I actually have a YouTube channel called Hoppy Sabbath Homestead. That's Hoppy, Hoppy Sabbath Homestead. You can find me on YouTube. I'm on Facebook under the Homesteading Realtor, and then also Hoppy Sabbath Homestead. My name is Morgyn Denman. I'm sure you're gonna have all my information and like phone numbers and everything. But yeah, I don't just want to buy and sell houses. I want to help you dream what kind of garden you want to have next year, and help you just visualize what you want. And even if it's just if there's one saying that one a YouTube channel or a YouTuber says, she says, grow something, anything, even if it's just yourself.
Yes.
And whenever she says that, I'm just like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you
I'm
want to
gonna write
just
that one down even.
grow something, anything, even if it's just yourself.
All right. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. That was a lot. And it was, I appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency.
I appreciate you having me on and letting me jib jab.
Yeah, for sure. So for everyone else out there, if you thought this was a good episode, please like, share, and rate this episode if the message resonated with you. You can find this and past episodes of WEYT. Remember, it's WEYT for what's engaging your thoughts. You can find more on YouTube at WEYT Show, Facebook, WEYT Show, Instagram, WEYT Show. And if you'd like to schedule a coaching call with me, you can send me an email at weytshow@gmail.com. And in closing, time and attention is the greatest gift we can give to each other. So here's to spreading more peace, love, and smiles. Later.